Yo,
Hey, Chris, you can hear me okay?
I can. How you doing?
Thumbs up, right on time, man. I mean, not that I expect anything less from you.
If there's one thing I am is punctual. My grandfather always said, if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time.
Putting the punk in punctual.
There you go.
Good day so far, otherwise?
Great day.
Cool. I am so glad we connected because I knew about you and your music, of course, Ska Kid from Long Island. You know who Chris and Less Than Jake are. But then when I found out about your podcast, I have to give you a huge compliment. Your interview with Rick Nielsen is 20 times better than either of my attempts at interviewing him. How'd you do that so well?
I've met him a couple times, and I kind of knew what I was getting into. He's very sarcastic, and so am I. But I try to keep my show a little different than a lot of people have commented. You seem so different than you are on stage. It's like, well, yeah, I didn't want to blur the lines with this. I made this in stark contrast to my stage persona because I didn't want to, the podcast to be about, dick jokes and stupid shit that we do live, because I could be 85 years old and that stuff's always going to be funny to me, But this was, I was thinking ahead of wanting to take the show, to a place where families could, drive to baseball games on Saturday and listen to it in the car. And, it could be I don't want to say a family thing, but I just wanted to be a little above boards. So.
Yeah, you went in super prepared because the first time I interviewed Rick, it was for Guitar World. I put it up on the website, and I'd say something along the lines of, so I heard a rumor that you're making a Christmas album. Is that true? And he'd go, not true. And he'd go, well, because we already made it. And I'm like, oh, I should have waited for the pause. You knew to wait for the pause.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. It was he kind of did his thing, but I also have to hand it to my producer, Chris Fafalios. Chris does a good job at editing certain things out. So we do some cleanups. Not to say we did much. We don't do anything crazy, but a lot of the ahs and the stops, and we try to make the show flow a little bit. Because you never know. Some people aren't cut out for doing this.
Yeah, I love the roster, the rundown of people you've had on the show already. Most people, when they start a podcast, they have to call in a couple favors because, well, hey, if you pitch it to a publicist, they'll go, okay, cool. How many listeners do you have? Oh, nobody? Who's been on the show before? Nobody. So it's not out yet. Oh, yeah, we'll get back to you. In your case, when you're getting, not only a bandmate, but members of the Alkaline Trio and all that kind of stuff, you had a good leg up, but you seem like a real natural for talking songcraft with people.
Well, I've been in the business for 30 years and,
yeah.
I went to school for telecommunications, and college, I always thought that I was going to go into radio. And I've certainly done enough interviews over the years. And I've done enough shitty interviews over the years. So that's really it. It's not the good ones you never remember. You just remember the ones that are like, oh God, where'd your band name come from? Oh, dude, you ever heard of
your influences, Chris?
Yeah, well, and for me, it's like there was two things with the podcast that I didn't want to do. I didn't want it to be an interview. I don't care about your band politics. I don't care about your third drummer that sued you. I don't care about any of that shit because it doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't interest me. What interests me is the song that either the artist, the guest, or myself chooses, which I did one yesterday. I was allowed to choose the song, which was great. And sometimes I'll suggest something, but ultimately I leave it up to the guest. And I want to know everything about the song from the beginning idea to everything. And the listeners find that fascinating as well. But I didn't want it to be an interview, and I didn't want it to be laborious, people getting on there going, oh God, here we go again, because it's just not, it's not fun.
It's going to keep coming back to Cheap Trick, unfortunately, by accident here, but I've never heard him explain Surrender before. I was super shocked that he would choose Surrender and open up about Surrender. Had you pitched a song to him, or he?
Well, no, it's funny. So I spoke with his manager, and I said to the manager, I said, hey, Rick knows who we are, because he knew that Less Than Jake had covered Surrender. And we had played with Cheap Trick a couple of years ago. And after that, I went and took my father to go see Cheap Trick, and we hung out backstage. And so Rick's familiar with myself and the band. And I just talked through their manager, Kevin. I said, hey, ask Rick what song he'd like to do. I said, just food for thought, Less Than Jake covered Surrender, and I would really love to dissect that song. And he wrote me back like that day. I was just like, Surrender it is. I was like, that's awesome, because I knew that my listeners would really, really want to hear about that as well.
I didn't realize that song meant anything. I have to say, like you, I've heard it thousands of times. And every now and then there's an amazing songwriter, somebody like Rick Ocasek, who they'll ask him about songs and goes, I just made it up. It's all from the perspective of other people. And I find that a lot of my favorite songwriters, they just made it up. It has nothing to do with what they went through. I had no idea that Surrender was in any way a personal song.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't either. There's times when what you just said, I'm shocked that someone will say, yeah, I just wrote this one morning. It's nonsense. Like, what? Yeah. Because it touched people around the globe in a certain way, and it stirred up all these emotions. Whereas other people are like, oh yeah, this was about this specific thing, and this is what it's about. And at the same time, other people didn't get that from the song. They felt it was about them, or their divorce, or their dad dying, or something in their life happening. So that's why music's great, because it's so subjective. And that's why starting the podcast, going on into my 5th month, almost 6 months now. And when I had first started doing it, so my manager, Chris Fafalios, who's also the producer of the show, Chris we had been working together, and he said, there's something I really want you to do. Consider, I really think you should do a podcast. And people had said that to me for probably the past decade. And I was like, nah. He's like, well, why? I said, everyone does a podcast. It's just, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you got a bedroom, you got a microphone, you could do a podcast.
Right.
And he said, yeah, but they're not you. And kind of chewed on that for a little bit. And I kind of knew what he meant. He meant what you said a moment ago, is I have such a great springboard to jump off of. I know so many people. I'm not going to have to try to get my foot in the door. I'm going to have an initial thing. And he also said, it's just going to be great. It's going to be great for other projects. He says, I know you're a natural at this. And he said, I really think people are going to love it. And I went to sleep that night. And the very next morning I got up, just got done making breakfast for my kids, and I'm just sitting there, and I start checking emails, and then I stopped checking emails, and I went direct to my text, and I texted like 20 guys, just boom.
Yeah.
I'm starting a podcast. I didn't even know the name of the show yet. I'm starting a podcast. Will you be on it? And I got the first week we taped 12 episodes in 1 week.
You did all of that in 1 week. Okay.
Yeah. I went for it, because I knew that I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. I wanted to go for it. I wanted to jump in. And I, in the back of my mind, I was like, if no one likes it, and if I'm not more than if no one likes it, if I am not getting something out of this and I don't enjoy it, then I got a couple months of episodes. It's fun. And I can just say, heck with it. And here we are.
It's amazing. And I don't use the word amazing much. I make fun of people who use the word amazing, because they're going to say, oh, these pancakes are amazing. Like, no, they're not. They're pancakes. This chair is amazing. Everything is amazing. But I'm going to say it's amazing to me that the podcast is not your only creative outlet. Less Than Jake is not your only creative outlet beyond that. The custom songs that you're doing, that demo reel of custom songs cracked me up, because you're able to change genres mid-sentence. So I hear somebody who's not only putting great work out there, but is actually getting everything done in a prolific way. Have you always been this motivated and prolific, or did it just come in the last couple of years?
No, I've always been this way, but with everything, with schoolwork, I always had my projects turned in ahead of time. I can't have something sitting in my head. I have to purge it. That's just the way my brain works.
Sure.
But the band was always enough for me, and we toured so much. you know, a couple of the other guys, our old drummer had a record label, has a record label, and he started a toy company, and you know, Roger has a side project, side band called Rehasher, and Buddy has a side band, and everyone's kind of had their own things over the years. And you know, I would get off the road after touring for 3 months and just be like, all right, I'm done touring. We're not leaving again for 3 weeks. And it was kind of like, you know, call up my buddies and go out and have some dinner and some drinks, and I would go into relax mode because I got every bit of creativity out of me with Less Than Jake, and I still do for the most part. But you know, I have children now, and my son's almost 4. My daughter's going to be 3 next year. She's so I have, you know, have the kids, and I came home last year, and we had finished doing a new Less Than Jake record. And I don't know. I just had one of those. It wasn't a midlife crisis. It was just I felt like the first half of my life was over, you know, that I was starting the second half of my life, because I am middle age, and it wasn't in a bad thing. It was just who am I outside of Chris from Less Than Jake? Because I was never Chris DeMakes. You know, that was the only thing. I don't have any regrets. Regrets are not good, because they do nobody any good.
Right.
But if there is one thing that I wish that I would have changed, was we were too punk for school back in the 90s, and something stuck with us throughout our career is I was Chris from Less Than Jake. We never put our last names in records. In fact, in the 90s, when we do interviews pre-internet, I was like Chris Van Halen, Chris Lee Roth. I was like, you know, Chris whoever.
Everyone did that. Bowling for Soup, that was Jarrett Von Erich.
Well, it was kind of the thing to do, but nobody knows who I am. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like nobody knew. And in fact, I would put out, I was the last one at the table to do social media stuff with the band. I have had a Facebook page forever, personal one, but the guys in the band were kind of like, dude, you need a Twitter, you need Instagram. I'm like, and I was showing my age. I was like, I don't want to deal with that, because I've talked to a lot of guys that are up my age, you know, around my age, are like, I don't do that social media shit. I don't want to deal with it. And I started to realize the importance of it. And I put this page out there, and, you know, overnight I had like a couple thousand followers, but then it went, you know, and those couple thousand are the fans that are really in tune and know who I am from the band. But nobody knew who Chris DeMakes was. So, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing or like a pity party. It's just
cons, you know.
What's that?
Pros and cons to.
Well, absolutely no. I'm not painting in a bad light. I'm going somewhere with this. I was being long-winded, but last fall I was thinking, who am I? Who am I outside of this band? You know, what else do I do that I love? And I was kind of banging my head against the wall for like a month or two. I was just thinking, like, what else do I like that I want to do? Well, I enjoy exercising, and I enjoy reading rock biographies. I enjoy time with my family. Okay, yeah, but like job-wise, what else do you like? And I don't know. I just had this epiphany of, you're a musician. Everything's right in front of you. Yeah. You know, it's right there. Just do something outside of the band. And that was it, you know. And once it started, you know, you use the word prolific. I just dove in the last year, and that's why it's, you know, you're not the first person to say, it's like, whoa, what the heck happened to you? And, you know.
You go from a band that, you know, new album every 2 years, and out of nowhere, an EP every 6 months out of nowhere, that kind of thing. And that's your output, with you co-wrote 15 songs, and that's it. To now, this guy, Chris, did you say 11 podcasts in the first week?
I think we did about a dozen the first week. It was it was like 3 months of content, because I do the podcast once a week.
And you got to think about how much more personality there is in a podcast than there is a song. The greatest song of all time still does not say very much about who the person is. Like, what does Mick Mars's speaking voice sound like? You know,
not many people know.
It's kind of tough to think about that some of our favorite people in the world. What does Bunny Carlos talk like? I don't know. I think I could pick out Robin Zander's speaking voice, but then you listen to 2 podcast episodes, even if it's just a 20, 30-minute thing, and you're like, okay, well, I know where the person lives and what they sound like and what makes them tick and what their stutters are and all that. So you just put out like 10 years of musical equivalent in like 3 months. That's how I look at it.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I never really thought about it like that. I just, to answer your initial question, yeah, I've always been very motivated, but I was always satisfied with the band, and I always kind of had this, I don't know, this, and I still do. I think our best records in front of us. I think our best shows in front of us. I think once you lose sight of that, then you have no more fight left in you, and that was always enough for me to attain and strive for, and things just kind of, I don't know, like something clicked with me. I really don't know. I can't explain it. It was just, I'm not really a religious person, but it was some kind of divine thing that just kind of hit me one day. And I was like, I'm feeling unfulfilled. Like, and I wasn't unfulfilled in an unhappy way. I have a beautiful family, band, fans all over the world. I wake up generally happy, every day, most of the time. And, but there was just something inside me that there's something more out there, and just started getting into projects. Chris has been a tremendous help, my manager. He's him and I get along fantastic. He plays bass in the band Punchline, who used to be on Fueled by Ramen.
That's the same Chris?
That's
I didn't
the same
know
Chris.
that.
Yeah, it's the same Chris.
I saw them open up for Fall Out Boy before they were famous on Long Island. I didn't know that's the same Chris I've been talking with. Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's the same Chris. Yeah. So, and Chris, he had done a cartoon animation for, we did a tour with Bowling for Soup last fall. And he did an animation little skit thing where Jarrett was calling Roger and I, and we're like, we were acting like we weren't interested in doing the tour. It was this funny thing Chris put together.
Yeah.
And I started doing my custom songs, and I thought, it'd be cool to do an animated video to advertise my songs. And I called Chris up and said, hey, would you be interested? Yeah, I would love to. So I hired him to do this video. And it was just, within a week, it was one thing after another of ideas. And we just, it was kind of like, I even made the joke, it was like our honeymoon phase. I'm like, I feel like we're dating, we were texting, but it was just this excitement, and he felt the same excitement, and he wanted to work, outside of Punchline, wanted to do something creative, and him and I have just been busy, and it's been great.
Yeah, and another compliment, because I just can't stop on the compliment end, and you're going to have to take these compliments, is the conversations that you're having with a lot of these people who are peers or friends are probably the same conversations that you would have had anyway had the recorder not been going on. So it's wonderful that you're documenting your life, because otherwise the phone call would have happened, or you would have had that over drinks and that was it. Hey, that was a good conversation. But now you preserved what you would be doing had you not been paid.
Yeah, and now I'm getting into other artists. So I've done a couple of people now that, and I've gotten the best compliments. These two, it was the same compliment from two separate artists. They both said, we got done with the podcast, and I'm like, saying the end things like, thank you so much for being on the show, blah, 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 the closing of the show. And they both said, man, that was really different. That was unlike anything I've ever done. And one of the guys has been in business over 30 years. And he's like, that was unlike anything I've ever done. That was really enjoyable. Thank you. I did one yesterday that was just, the artist at the end was just like, well, first of all, when's this going to air, what we're doing here?
You tell me when you want it to air, and it's going to air then.
Well, if it airs after October 5th, which isn't very long from now, I can tell you who the artist was yesterday. So
I can scrape, you can tell me and I'll scrape that from this, but odds are it's going to be after October 5th.
Perfect. So, if it's after October 5th, I had Laura Jane Grace on yesterday from Against Me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Laura, who I've known forever.
Yeah.
We pretty much just laughed through the whole episode and just had fun. Like you said, it was like two friends backstage talking about a song, but Laura had never been asked the questions I was asking about the song, and was just, we did the song White People for Peace off their New Wave record, and just completely floored. Made mention at the end, like, man, this was just unlike anything I've ever done. And it's refreshing. And that has been one hard thing, especially right now with bands not being able to tour. Bands are in between projects. So I've been hitting up management companies and stuff and being like, hey, I want to get so-and-so artist. I'm like, yeah, they're not doing any interviews right now. It's like, okay, first of all, this isn't an interview. The last fucking thing I want to do is interview anybody. Last thing. I never want to do another interview. I never want to be interviewed. Okay. And this isn't an interview what we're doing. We're just talking. You know,
Yeah.
this is, I'm not directing that at you, but the formal interview of like, okay, state your name. Oh Christ. You don't know my name? Yeah. So
Yeah.
how long's Les and Jake been together? It's like, do you have one of these? Like, do you know how to use it? It's like, it's almost insulting, and not from an ego. I'm not like, you know, but it's like, if you're a journalist, do your research. So
Sure.
getting across the point to them that I don't want to do an interview, number one. Number two, with all due respect, I'll let you plug the shit out of your new album at the end of the podcast, but I don't care about the new record, and most of your fans probably don't either. Just like they don't give a fuck about a new Les and Jake record. I hate to be like that, but like people, I always give the example of Metallica's last record had some of their best songs ever, in my opinion. There's one song that stood out the bone that if that was on Master of Puppets, it'd be one of their biggest hits. But that song doesn't have 30 years of memories attached to it.
Mm-hmm. The memory doesn't remain.
There you go. Dum-dum. Yeah. And you can quit your day job because that was really good. You should go into stand-up or sit down. You're doing it sit down. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's one of the challenges is getting across. No, this is about a song of theirs that one of their biggest songs that has touched people, and it's not an interview. And again, I don't care about your third drummer who's suing you or this and that, or your bass player who cheated on with your wife. This is about the hit in the song. And once I get that across, I've had people come around and go, oh, okay, I get it. You know?
Yeah. You're creating a community, and you're doing it with like-minded people, and you're focusing on the people that actually matter instead of trying to win over the unattainable people who never read liner notes.
Yeah, well, that and you know, eventually I kept thinking, you know, I'm using my initial circle of friends and world that I come from, punk and ska, to get artists. But you know, now I've been branching out and I'm getting some other folks. So I got some really good guests coming up that are not part of my world at all. That's exciting for me because I don't know them. And I like that aspect of it too, because most of the people I've had on are friends of mine so far. It's very easy to talk to your friends. It's challenging, you know, and I like a challenge. It's a little more challenging when you don't know someone's personality or what you're going to get on the other line.
For sure.
And I have to remain stoic and professional in what I do in that setting, you know.
And that all harkens back to the Rick Nielsen interview, which you handled very well as the straight man, even though he told you he was in the room when you were conceived or your brother was conceived.
My brother was, yeah.
Exactly.
And it was ridiculous. But, and it was those kinds of moments where I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm sitting here in my home studio talking to Rick Nielsen, and he's making jokes about my parents fucking, you know, it's like, what the hell's going on?
Is it cool if I now steer towards the Van Halen, David Lee Roth portion of our conversation?
You can steer wherever you want. Let's do it.
Okay. So I co-founded the DLR cast with my co-host Steve Roth, no relation to Diamond Dave, because like what I was saying to you before, I realized we're just having these conversations anyway that appeal to 0.001% of people, but that 0.001% of people love it to no end. And I have this weird email thread that never stopped from like 3 years ago, where we just wound up talking about Rudy Sarzo and all that kind of era of metal.
I'll talk about Rudy. You're going to meet your match right now, because I will talk for days. Like, I'm an encyclopedia of this shit.
Well, what I was curious about is if you have that kind of group of friends that anytime you see well, look what Ace Frehley has done again, that news headline goes to them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got a friend of mine, a number of friends, someone who was initially a fan of the band, a friend of mine, this guy Rich from Buffalo, New York. It's like, we won't see each other for 6 months. And the first time I run to him, we go, dude, did you hear about Rudy Sarzo? He's playing with Whitesnake now. You know, like that. And the same thing with him. So, of course, yeah.
Exactly. That's really great to hear. So you mentioned before that, you know, passingly, oh, well, hey, I'm Chris Van Halen, I'm Chris Lee Roth. I don't know if that was targeted at that, but was Van Halen your entry to hard rock, or was it Kiss or Motley Crue?
Um, kind of all the above. So my mom and dad were musicians. I was born in a musical household. Music was always encouraged, never frowned upon. They didn't care if I brought home a Stryper record, a Slayer record, a Neil Diamond record, a Christmas record, a Christian record. Didn't matter. Music was music. So, from an early age, I was listening to everything my parents were listening to in the 70s, Boston ELO, Cheap Trick, Neil Diamond, and then as I got a little older, I was probably, I think I was 10 years old when I bought Metal Health by Quiet Riot.
Sure.
And
So
shortly
Rudy
there,
Sarzo comes back.
there you go. And shortly thereafter, it was like Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil was around that time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, that hard rock. Van Halen, of course. And Van Halen, when I first heard of them, I didn't hear of Van Halen. I remember hearing, I think, Pretty Woman on the radio, which I would have been about 9 years old
Right.
at that point. I'm sure I had heard Running in the Devil or Running with the Devil or some of those songs, Dance the Night Away on the radio going to Little League games or something. But I'm sure I did. I don't really remember, but I truly remember the phenomenon that was Jump in '84 and that whole thing. Once that hit, I went back and discovered Van Halen's whole catalog. Huge fan.
Were you a Dave fan as a solo artist? I can't quite place with that timeline if you would have been straight away just a Gigolo and into all that, or later on you discovered Yankee Rose when, man, that's the best.
When he did the California Girls and that whole, Hollywood trip, I was fascinated by the videos because MTV was such a phenomenon at that time, and I was living it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the summer of '85, I went up for a couple weeks to spend with relatives in Michigan, and we didn't have cable TV in Florida then. Okay, cable TV was a premium. If you lived too far out, they weren't going to run cables to where you lived.
Right.
And that's just the way it was. But my cousins, they had cable TV and they had MTV, and I remember just being mesmerized by the Just a Gigolo, California Girls videos. So I liked it from that aspect. Didn't really like the songs. I did like Skyscraper though when it came out, Yankee Rose, and that video was of course a classic. So I loved it.
Did you grow up playing the Van Halen riffs on guitar? Because I know they're not easy, and everyone wants to play them, and then they realize that they can't play them, and then they kind of give up and then go to punk rock.
No, I missed that whole thing because I always saw myself as a singer. So I didn't pick up the guitar until I was almost 18 years old.
Really?
I was in, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I say I didn't pick it up, I knew some chords. My dad was a player. There was always a guitar in the house. I knew GD. I could get around a little bit.
Cowboy chords.
It wasn't until I got to Gainesville that I was starting to audition for bands, and I would go out to the record store, and there used to be those singer wanted with, like, at the bottom you tear off the piece of paper with the phone numbers.
Of course.
And I went and auditioned for a couple different bands, and 1991 was a very strange year. Okay, you were getting out of the 80s. Grunge was on the cusp of what they were calling grunge. It was ushering in a different style of music and a different way of thinking. And so I'd show up to like these rehearsals, and there'd be a dude in the corner with like long hair down to here with like eyeshadow on, looked like he was in Poison. Then the next guy next to him would look like a lumberjack, like Eddie Vedder, with like, a flannel top on and a mushroom bobbed haircut. Then there'd be like a bald guy with suspenders next to him in a circle jerk shirt. He was the drummer. It's like, whoa, the identity here is really bizarre. And here I am. Here, can you sing this? Okay, cool. What kind of style? Well, we want you to make it sound like Queensryche mixed with Bad Religion mixed with Van Halen. You're like, okay. So that's when I started playing guitar. I'm like, I need to communicate the songs in my head to hear, because I'm not going to find anybody that's going to do it. I have to do it myself. And punk rock was really speaking to me by then for a number of reasons. As a guitar player, it was easy to play. It's 3 chords. So, it wasn't until years later that I would go back and be like, you know what, I'm going to try to learn the riff to Dance the Night Away by Van Halen, or learn this and learn that. But it wasn't something I was learning back in the day. No.
Did you have to hide your metal roots? No, I do know that Less Than Jake was always big on covers, not just the Cheap Trick cover we were talking about before. I think I remember a We're Not Gonna Take It cover in a compilation.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to hide the metal roots? Because it used to be, oh, Scott, oh, I love reggae. I know every song.
No, I mean, we had a song called All My Best Friends Are Metalheads. You know, we did a 7-inch compilation, or a 7-inch split with Megadeth when we were on Capitol. Awesome.
Really?
Yeah. We did a Slayer 7-inch. We covered 2 Slayer songs. It was a Less Than Jake. It was our logo as Slayer. I used to dress full metal regalia, like 80s metal on stage. If you go to my Instagram page and scroll back, you'll see all the pictures, which are coming out in my book in November. I have a book coming out.
A book?
So,
what? Wait. So the dude's got a podcast. He's got the custom songs. He's got a book. Oh yeah, and he's in a really big band who apparently I don't know the discography of very well.
Yeah, and I mean, you know it well enough. I mean, you're busy dealing with Van Halen's discography. That's enough, man. Shit, they got tons of records. And I'm also doing this with people. I'm doing one-on-one video consultations where I produce songs. I give advice to the music business, and so I'm doing that quite a bit lately, and that's been great. I love it because I never wanted to be a producer in the sense of, all right, here I am in a hotel in LA, and the band just called. I'm going to the studio, and you get in there, and it's the first day. It's like, all right, guys, what do you got? And they're like, here's our song. I'm not babysitting. What I love is having an artist take their song to the 11th hour, push it as far as they can, and they go, here, Chris, what do you think? Then I can sit back, digest it for a day or two, and then I get on with them like this, and I go, that intro's awesome. Why isn't it doubled? Oh, I don't know. I want you to try it double. I think it's such a great part. That lick in the bridge, that guitar lick should be at the top of the song, man. That's like such a hook. I didn't think of that. You know, this lyric could be better. This melody needs to be tuned up. And then I just go with the song. And so I've been doing a lot of producing, just advice for bands of how to get out there, how to get their name out there, how to promote themselves. So yeah, I've been doing that as well.
You've done more in the last 3 months than Van Halen has done in the last 6 years. So.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's not saying much, but yeah.
Now, how are you in terms of the Van Halen trajectory? Do you like everything, mostly everything, or are you one of those people where you go, it's Roth or it's nothing?
I like it all. But I also recognize that they were 2 separate bands, you know. And I never used the word Van Hagar, but it was Van Hagar, you know, because Sammy had a very successful, he was with Montrose, of course, and then he went to be with a solo career that was doing great. I mean, he was in certain pockets of the country, he was an arena act by the time VOA came out. You know, I Can't Drive 55, well, that was a huge hit.
Hit, yeah.
Okay, and so he was a star. Sammy had you know, carved out a nice career for himself. And then, you know, getting into Van Halen, it's like the stars just kind of lined up. You know, there's not too many acts these days that could happen to, because it's also different today. You know, for instance, I had Matt Skiba from Alkaline, who sings for Blink now, on the show the other day, and Matt's a dear friend. But you know, it doesn't matter if Tom DeLonge was still in the band. Blink's not going to get on the radio with their new songs anymore. That doesn't work. You know, new stuff on the radio is Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, the pop stuff, you know, or a really young hard rock band.
Right.
And Blink's become a legacy band, like Less Than Jake's a legacy band, like a lot of these are. And what I'm getting at is that if it were to happen today, where a singer like Roth left a band and they got Sammy, yeah, Sammy could go out and they could do what Matt's doing with Blink and go out and fill amphitheaters possibly and play the hits and make them sound good, but their new stuff's not going to get any attention. But in 1986, Van Halen were just so massive, and Roth had went out and he was massive.
He was still,
and then they got Sammy in, and it just exploded. It was bigger than when Roth was in the band. You know, and people can argue that whether they want to or not. It was bigger on a sales level. And in some ways, on a cultural level, it was bigger too. You know, because the mystique of David Lee Roth grew as the years went, and the Sammy haters fed into that a lot, like it's Roth or nothing. But, you know, David came in, it wasn't really, it was 84 and beyond. And 84 was a short period of time before he struck out solo. But MTV truly made you stars. They brought you into people's homes. It was no longer waiting for a magazine for 3 months and going, oh, that's what the bass player for Van Halen looks like, Michael Anthony. No, it was now, oh, he's on my fucking TV, you know? And so Van Halen, when Sammy came in, MTV was already this institution, already this thing, and it just was fucking huge.
That is such an apt comparison I never thought of, the Blink-182 without Tom, with Matt. That really explains it in a very interesting way about how that album that they did with Roth called A Different Kind of Truth was a great album. Did it get any play or acclaim? No, it didn't, unfortunately, because you can't get the new material on the radio. But then again, if it was a bunch of fresh-faced kids putting that album out there, that actually might have gotten play.
Well, it also, let's say that Van Halen recorded, and I always wish a band would have done this, like Zeppelin, anybody. But
Outrocast.